Hello friends, good afternoon. Welcome to the Hindi News Analysis. Today is 16th of May 2018. The PPT is available for download. The link is below. Myself, Sagar B. Ashwath. I am a tutor at Shiksha IAS Academy, faculty for Psychology, Indian Economy and Ethics. As usual, the quote by Abraham Lincoln: I destroy my enemy when I make him my friend. So make more friends, so you'll not have enemies. So that would be the destruction of your enemy as soon as that person becomes your friend. Right? What do we have in store today? So this is something which I found in the newspaper, warm glow giving. So this is a theory which was developed by economist James Andriani. So what he says is that people give gifts to other people, right, because they feel happy. It's not because they want to help them. So the mainstream view is that people donate charity because they feel happy when they give it. So for their own sake, they give the gifts, not for the sake of helping other people. So that's what he says. So it's called the warm glow giving. So something which I found interesting on the Hindi newspaper. Right. So what do we have in store today? So the editorial part. Today's paper is quite political in nature. Most of the things today are mostly political. Why? Because recently concluded Karnataka elections have been news. So most of the parts of the paper is covered by the Karnataka elections itself, and here too, the third place winner. Here again it is about the Karnataka elections, pieces of a scattered mandate. Karnataka elections not required. At last, a scheme. This is about the Kaveri dispute between Tamil Nadu and Karnataka, into which we will be going in detail. So all the details you require regarding the Karnataka water dispute, Kaveri water dispute, will be looked into. And a triple blow to job guarantee scheme. This is about the MG Narega scheme, the problems with this scheme. So that is what we'll be looking into. And then you have on this side, on the OPEC page, Sri Lanka is the only country that has eradicated terrorism. This is the claim made by the army chief of Sri Lanka, and probably this is more biased than it is than the true picture. So we'll be not going into this one as well. Wuhan's promise. This is about how China is now moving towards India to create Asia pivot, whereby China is getting closer to India in the sense that it wants to mend its ties with India. So the Wuhan's promise, the two leaders, right, Modi and Xi Jinping, met at Wuhan, and probably there were no formal agreements as such at the meet. However, going forward, the signs are positive, given that the Trump administration has not been so coy, so as to say, so good with the Chinese administration. And China is trying to build bridges with Japan, India, and at the same time Australia and New Zealand. So they are trying to wind up this agreement, so as to say, bring to fruition the agreement called CPEC, right? CPEC agreement. So sorry, not CPEC, it is RCEP, or it is Regional Comprehensive Economic Cooperation Agreement. So that's what this article speaks of. More about it when the two leaders meet, and the outcomes of that meet will be discussed in detail later, right? And next you have the world news. Here you do not have much. Again, Gazans bury the dead on Nakba Day. There have been a lot of killings. I think you should go through this once. And then nothing important on this page. And then oil widens trade deficit to 13.7 billion. This is something you have to give a single reading. And this one is not important because that is rupee weakens to 68.07. Now this is because this is only a temporary slide. mostly because of the election results, the fractured mandate we got in Karnataka, where the central ruling party, that is the BJP, is walking a tightrope, or whether or not it will form a government is pretty much dependent on how things pan out in the next few days. So probably the rupee is going to recover in the coming days. So it's not important, something which is rather only for a few days, this rupee weakening. So you need not go into the details of this one as well. So the first one, a triple third job guarantee scheme. So this is about the MG Narega scheme. What is this MG Narega scheme? So Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act. So this is a scheme which is being implemented by the Ministry of Rural Development. Sorry, it is Ministry, and I have typed it wrong. So it's a worker-centric legislation, and the emphasis has been laid on transparency and accountability, whereby you can track how many people have gotten on job related to MG Narega works. So the MG Narega has both the capital component as well as the wage component, which is in the ratio as of now at 60:40. So you have this real-time management information system whereby it brings in the transparency and accountability. And thirdly, it is a demand-driven scheme whereby those people who have the job cards, when they apply for a job, they are supposed to get the job within 15 days, right? If the worker does not get the job within 15 days, he is entitled to get an unemployment allowance. So the payment of the wages has to happen within 15 days of completion of work. If not, the compensation of 0.05% per day of the wages will be earned by the workers. So this is something which is revolutionary in nature. In fact, this scheme was even hailed by World Bank as one of the best schemes to reduce poverty and unemployment. So what are we speaking about? Why is this in news? Or so as to say, why is an article written on this? A triple low to job guarantee scheme. There are some problems with the job guarantee scheme. So that's what it says. So there was a shortage, right? Or so as to say, the wages pending under this scheme for the whole country in the year 2016-17 was around 11,000 crore. So this is almost a fifth of the MG Narega budget announced this year, which amounts to about 48,000 crore rupees. So there are certain provisions of the Act which we just saw here, which have been violated rather routinely. In this regard, a public interest litigation has been placed before the Supreme Court by Swaraj Abhiyan. So regarding these violations, the Swaraj Abhiyan has filed a PIL, and the Supreme Court is yet to give a verdict on it. So what are the three blows which we are talking about here? One, budget allocation to this scheme over the years has been rather insufficient. Nominal budget has been increasing for the last 2 years, but the real budget we are speaking of, which removes the effects of inflation, right? The real budget of 2018-19 is far, far lesser than the real budget of 2010-11. So this is the first problem we have. So the budget allocation in real terms is much, much lesser. It is dropping by the year. And one more thing is that of the central government gives the funds to the state government, or so as to say, for the MG Narega scheme based on the data, estimated data given by the state governments. So this is a bottom-up participatory planning approach, whereby every state submits a labor budget which contains the anticipated labor demand to the center every December towards the end of the year. That is, the center has been using this data, and it is coming up with some sort of arbitrary approved labor budget. So this cuts down the funds required by the states. So this actually causes the demand-driven scheme as we spoke of earlier. So this is a demand-driven scheme. So this is a demand-driven scheme. Now it becomes a supply-driven scheme. It is completely based on how much the central government is ready to give to this program or approve to this program. So the approved labor budget, such an approved labor budget, puts the cap on the funds which will be given to the MG-Narega scheme. The second problem is that the lack of payment of wages on time. In the year 2016-17, there were only 21% of the payments which were made on time. Rest of the payments were delayed for some or the reason. When the central government was asked to as to why there was a lack of payment of wages on time, it says there are infrastructural bottlenecks, unavailability of funds, or lack of administrative compliance. So these were standard reasons given by the central government. However, these reasons cannot be acceptable given that it hits the beneficiaries of the scheme who are mostly vulnerable in nature, especially the women, Dalits and Adivasis. And the third problem it speaks of is the stagnating MG-Narega wages. Why has this happened? Because the MG-Narega wage rates have been delinked from the Minimum Wages Act of 1948, and the wages given under the MG-Narega scheme are much less lucrative than the wages given in the farm areas, in the agriculture wages given in the farmlands by agriculturists. So these are the problems we have related to MG-Narega scheme as of now. And then we have the Kaveri issue. At last we have a scheme, right? So how did we come to this? In fact, the verdict was given by the tribunal. The Supreme Court made a change to the verdict and asked the central government to come up with a draft plan to implement the Supreme Court's amended verdict. So, but the central government had taken a lot of time to give or to notify its draft plan. So only recently, only yesterday, the central government has placed before the Supreme Court the draft plan. Probably that was because of the Karnataka elections. It was not mustering courage to place the plan before the Supreme Court or to notify the plan. So what is this dispute all about? The root cause of the dispute is the two agreements which were signed between the British-controlled Madras Presidency and the princely state of Mysore. So as we can remember, the Madras Presidency was completely controlled by the British and the Mysore was a princely state, and there were two agreements signed. One was signed in 1892 and the other one was signed in 1924. So the Madras Presidency had its reservations when it came to the Mysore state's plan to build irrigation projects on the river. So the British government made both this princely state of Mysore and the Madras Presidency to sign an agreement in 1892, which aimed to serve the purposes of both the states. In 1910, however, the Madras Presidency again objected to the construction of a dam by the Mysore state. This matter went to an arbitral tribunal. The arbitration led to another agreement between the two states in 1924. This agreement would last for 50 years. That is, the agreement would last till 1974. So after independence in 1947, there were more states which staked their claim on the Kaveri, that is the Kerala, Puducherry states also staked their claim. Now, after 50-year period, that is after 1974, the Karnataka government started to argue that the state was not obliged to stick to the regulations and regulations of the 1924 agreement. So especially because the river originated in the state of Karnataka. So this became a problem for Tamil Nadu as the state had become dependent on Kaveri water, especially huge, large swathes of agricultural land in the delta area dependent on this very river. So in between 1960 and late 1980s, Karnataka built 4 dams on Kaveri. The Tamil Nadu government was really not happy about it. Hemavati, Harangi, Kabini, and Suvarnavati were the 4 dams built. So Tamil Nadu, which is the lower riparian state, which comes where the river flows later into the state, being a lower riparian state, argued that this put them in a precarious situation and approached the Supreme Court to resolve this issue. So when Tamil Nadu approached the Supreme Court, Karnataka argued that it should follow international norms whereby the river water would be divided equally amongst the 2 states. Or so as to speak, you have 2 more riparian states here. So for that reason, Karnataka argued that 47% for each state, that is the bigger states of Karnataka and Tamil Nadu, and the rest would be equally divided between Kerala and Puducherry. However, none of the states were happy about it except Karnataka, so because it was Karnataka's argument. In 1990, the Apex Court heard the petitions submitted by different states and directed them to negotiate, but the dialogue failed, and the Supreme Court directed the centre to set up a tribunal, right, which would decide on the distribution of water amongst the states. After which there was an order given by the tribunal in 2007, right? So before this 2007 order, 562 TM-CFT, cubic feet of water was being taken by Tamil Nadu, which is roughly 3/4 of the water, and Karnataka used to take almost 2/3 of the available water. But after a lot of to and fro in the issue, the Kaveri Water Disputes Tribunal gave its final award in 2007, but the central government notified this award only in the year 2013. The Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu, Jayalalitha, the then Chief Minister, approached the Supreme Court saying that there has to be a Kaveri Management Board to take care, or so as to say, to see that the tribunal's award is being implemented properly, but this did not bear any fruit. Since then, on many occasions, the 2 states have fought against each other regarding the sharing of water, arguing on the years with the scanty rainfall. What happens when there is scanty rainfall? The waters would not be sufficient for the upper riparian state, that is Karnataka itself. So Karnataka would not be able to release water to Tamil Nadu in that year. In that situation, what happens to Tamil Nadu's agriculture itself? So in August 2016, again the situation became worse for Tamil Nadu. So it went to Supreme Court and it sought Supreme Court's intervention, saying that there was 50,000 million cubic feet of water deficit, which was released by Karnataka reservoirs. So the minimum limit prescribed by CDWT, that is Kaveri Water Dispute Tribunal, whatever was given in an order of 2007, even from that point, 50 TM-CFT water was lesser. That's what the Tamil Nadu government said in the Supreme Court. The state said that the farmers needed more water to begin cultivating samba. It's a kind of rice grown in the state, and the Karnataka government said that it wouldn't be able to release more water because there was low rainfall due to a bad monsoon, and most of its reservoirs were empty. So the Supreme Court on February 16 this year pronounced its verdict. It reduced the water allocation to Tamil Nadu. This is the final verdict we are talking about. So to Tamil Nadu by 14 TMC, and Karnataka will now release only 177 TMC of water to Tamil Nadu for the next 15 years. The court also ordered the centre to constitute a Kaveri Management Board within 40 days for implementing the tribunal award and its verdict. However, the centre was dilly-dallying and it was not, notifying the order at all. So, for that reason, the Supreme Court, pushed the centre to, form this Kaveri Management Board and submit a draft scheme to implement this. And finally, the centre submitted yesterday the draft plan or the draft scheme. The details of the draft are as follows. So, the name of the authority is not Kaveri Management Board anymore. So, there is no name given to the authority that monitors the implementation of the Kaveri Tribunal's final verdict as amended by the Supreme Court. So, there is no name for the authority yet. However, it will be a two-tier structure. The apex body will be there to ensure the compliance of the final award by various states, and there will be a regulation committee to monitor the field situation, right, and whether the water is flowing properly or not. The authority has the powers to apportion, right, so how much water should go for which state in which year, especially dependent on how much monsoon rainfall is there and reservoir water levels in the reservoirs, regulation and control of Kaveri waters, supervision of operations of reservoirs and regulation of water. All this falls within the ambit of the authority. And it also says the authority's decisions are final and binding. So if the authority finds that any of the states is not following the authority's decision, then it can seek the centre's help to resolve the issue, and the centre's decision will be final and binding. But the problem is the fifth clause. This fifth clause we are talking about is rather ambiguous. While it looks like an enabling clause to resolve the situation, the scope for the centre to intervene in the issue on behalf of one state is very much apparent. So this could pose a problem whereby the centre can actually be biased towards one state. So this problem we have with the fifth clause. And going further, the scheme also envisages that there be a chairman for the authority, the authority which is not the Kaveri Management Board. Instead of the Kaveri Management Board, it is just the authority, and the chairman of this authority would be a senior and an eminent engineer with wide experience in water resources management, and he would be an officer in the rank of secretary or additional secretary to the union government. And also there will be representatives from the 4 states. These would be administrators rather than engineers, as put forward by the tribunal. So these are some changes. These are the changes which are made, apart from what the verdict says. So what is the way forward? Given that this dispute has dragged on for years together rather than years, it has been decades, it is important for all the states to be on board when it comes to the draft plan, and also the authority itself should have adequate autonomy to decide the issue. So all the states have to come together and agree to the broad contours of this scheme and comply with the authority's decisions as much as possible. The most welcome feature of such a mechanism is that an issue concerning the livelihood of thousands of farmers will be taken out of the political domain, and it will be left to the hands of experts, the subject experts. So that's a good thing about, convincing thing about the scheme, right? So that's it for today, guys. Thank you, and have a beautiful day. Right, and do like the video so that it can reach more peoples. Thank you.